We have an incredible turnout tonight, so thank you so much for those of us who are standing room only in the back. We will continue to project so you can hear us and make sure that you are still part of this conversation, as that's so important to collecting feedback from you all tonight. I'd also really like to thank our elected officials who are here today, specifically Councilwoman Torres, Councilwoman Gonzalez-Gutierrez, yes, as well as DPS board member De La Rosa, and I know that there's so many more that we have missed, but as you can tell, it's a very crowded room tonight, so thank you for making time.
Tonight's agenda and tonight's program will take place in two parts. The first will be a formal presentation, and the second will be interactive question and answers that will be done as breakdowns. We'll be taking collective feedback throughout. That will include
surveys and interactive polling during the presentation, as well as surveys both paper and digital after the presentation. Just a few of the many ways that we are collecting feedback tonight, in addition to all of our boards and posters around the room. Thank you for already filling those up with your thoughts and comments. On the agenda, we will hear the Broncos' vision for this project and a little bit of the history and how this all came together. We will hear from the city on the city's planning process, just to educate us in this setting and what we're working through right now. We will hear and see some initial concepts. These are originated from feedback from our November open house that we had in this very same room, direct feedback from you all, and we get your feedback immediately on what you are thinking and thoughts associated with how that looks. We have two goals tonight, and I will reiterate them at the beginning as well as at the end. The first goal is we want you to hear accurate information from the Broncos about what we know and also what we don't yet know about this project. We are still in listening mode, learning mode, and this is a part of the initiative to incorporate the community so that this is really community-driven feedback, and it's a community-centered project for all of us to enjoy as neighbors together. The second, our goal is to collect and gather actionable input from you all, so that we can collectively and thoughtfully integrate that into the design planning process for iterations to share back with you along the way. So goals for tonight, accurate info, bring you into the world of what we've been hearing, listening, and learning about, and also collect more feedback for you so we have exciting things to share in the future. And with that, I will welcome to the stage Damani Leach, team president for the Denver Broncos.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. It's a great crowd. I've seen how many people here, but I appreciate you all for joining us here tonight. As Ali said, we're going to hear a lot about our vision and plans for the future for this area outside the stadium. For those of you who are hoping to see renders on the stadium, you're not going to see that tonight. Our focus is on the community outside the stadium and how it connects to the broader community around it. And a lot of the focus is going to be on the future and where things are going, where they might go. But I think it's important, before you look at that, to really anchor yourself on the history. Denver has been the home of the Denver Broncos since day one. I see a lot of Broncos logos and hats and shirts in here. And you all know we've had many mile-high moments and championships together that we've celebrated, both the old Mile High and at our current home of Power Field at Mile High. Yeah. As we enter and approach our 30th year in that stadium, really for the last 2 years, our staff and our ownership group has spent quite a bit of time researching opportunity for what the future might hold for this stadium. Should it be renovated? Should it be built new? We've traveled around the country interviewing people. We've interviewed fans and surveyed fans. And here more recently, certainly, I've spent a lot of time, looking across the Denver metro region at a variety of sites that could be opportunities for the home of the Denver Broncos, for a stadium, as well as a vibrant community that surrounds that stadium. And really, about a year ago, our focus, our focus led us here to Burnham Yard, and this not only amazing site, but also this vibrant community that surrounds it, an opportunity for us to connect to it, to provide a great holistic and elevated experience for our fans on game day, but also a great experience for everybody across the Front Range. Now, the site, as you all know, particularly those who live around it, has been abandoned for the better part of a decade. And we really view that as a tremendous opportunity to revitalize that site and connect to an existing great community and do that in the right way. And we want to get your feedback here tonight on what that looks like. What are the things you're excited about? What are the things you're concerned about? But ultimately, we're really excited about that opportunity. And for us, it really starts with the community. So certainly, as you've heard, the Walton Interfamily Ownership Group plans to privately finance the stadium. We hope and expect to get support for necessary infrastructure improvements from the state and from the city. But ultimately, the soul of this, if we do this right, it's going to be community. And that's why meeting with you all is so important. We've had many meetings with neighborhood leaders, political leaders over the last several months since we announced our preferred site in September, and we plan to continue to do that. So tonight is important, but it won't be the last time we look to get feedback from the community, but it's going to be very important as we go along in this process. Again, the history of this site, particularly Burnham Yard, is so rich. It's really what excited us about the opportunity to bring a stadium here and to develop around that stadium. Dating back really over 100 years, 200 years, indigenous communities occupied this land. It was a rail yard. Many people worked there. Some of your own family descendants worked in that area. And we really think that's important to both express that and celebrate that as we bring this project to light. Certainly, in the last decade or so, there's not been a lot going on in Burnham Yard, but we think and get excited about that it has great bones. There's a lot of opportunities for us to do really great things there. We've got our ideas. We want to know what your ideas are. Things around retail, certainly housing, entertainment. All of those things are what excite us about the opportunity for this site and how it connects to this neighborhood. Culture, art, all of those things, open space, and you're going to hear a lot about that later on tonight. But those are the things that excite us about the opportunity here. But really, more than anything, we want this to be a world-class experience on game day for Broncos fans, and broader than that, just a great place for people to be. Day in, day out, year-round, entertainment, jobs, impact for the city, for the community, and the broader Rocky Mountain region. So that's a little bit of the vision. Later on, some folks are going to go into the details about overthinking, but right now I'm going to hand it to Stephen Wilson with the city of Denver to talk about some of the processes related to this project.
The folks in the back here, all right, great crowd. I think in the time I've been doing LDR, this is the biggest meeting or the biggest crowd we have so far. So great job, Denver. See that. Yep. So my name is Stephen Wilson with Community Planning and Development, and we wanted to spend just a couple of minutes to set the stage for how tonight's meeting fits within the overall city review process. So community planning and development, we work with folks of all kinds within the city to guide growth, building a sustainable and safe community. In large development review, our goals are to implement city council adopted plans, provide an opportunity to identify issues early in the process, provide information with tonight's meeting, and to create a framework of coordinated development. There's also a concurrent small area plan process going on. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes to try and clarify the difference between these two processes within the city. So on the small area plan, that's going to bring the community together to identify a vision for the area, and then provides recommendations on how to achieve that vision. It has a level of detail and analysis that's at a higher level. It provides ultimately the small area plan. In a sort of an ideal process, it would be more linear, where we move from broad to specific, from citywide to individual sites, and in a more linear fashion. What happens more typically is then planning and development occurs with overlapping processes. And with these overlapping processes, LDR, large development review, helps shape that sequence. I do want to point out that there are existing plans and efforts that affect the site. So Blueprint Denver, Comp Plan 2020, so those are existing plans that provide some guidance. Again, noted the sort of top middle, the area plan is the current effort that will provide guidance. There are environmental studies that are already existing. And in the room behind this room, we have Natrice Bryant from the state here who has additional information. So please feel free to stop by and visit her. She has a bright orangish color vest on. There are past mobility plans that she can also talk to. And then also an important thing is the applicant's development program. These are all things that go into the final product for Burnham Yard.
There you go.
And then I just want to point out that no plans have been approved to the site to date, right? So we're, as Damani Leach mentioned, we're in this initial stage. Guiding growth is a continuum. So we have the citywide planning on the left that goes across these various steps to the final, which is site development plans for that vertical development.
Oops, he's moving forward.
So one thing I like to point out is the difference between neighborhood planning and large area planning. So that is an important distinction because in neighborhood planning, which is the area plan effort.
Sorry, this thing's advancing.
In neighborhood planning, visioning is open and we want to get as much feedback as possible. When we're doing the large development review, we're going based on the adopted plan and guidance. Sometimes LDR prompts the need for an area plan, that's what we're doing with the area planning on this project. And we've done that before as an example on the Red Heights. And then sometimes the two inform one another. Just another point about the difference between large development review and LDR and small area plans. The large development review is specific to the site with a specific application, and small area plan is a larger area. So I know that there's a whole bunch of words and steps here, but what I wanted to point out is there are parts of this process that are approved by City Council, and there are parts of the process that are approved administratively. So the areas I have circled in red are all stages that would be approved by City Council, right? So including the area plan, the rezoning, and if there are other agreements. And then the other parts are approved administratively based on the regulations that we have within the city, like the Denver zoning ordinance and the adopt place. So as mentioned, the site is 150 acres. And I did want to just point out that within the large development review, there may be some adjustment to what goes into the final large development review. What we have, what we think is that outermost boundary. There is a proposed rezoning, and then just coincidentally, a stadium and surface parking are allowed under the current entitlement.
So,
Shaking to the air here.
sorry, I'm not very good with clicker.
So in terms of the citywide plans, I did want to just mention, we would print Denver Comprehensive Plan 2020-40, Denver Movements and Game Plan for a Healthy City. So some of these are from Community Planning and Development, others are from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and then some are from Denver Parks and Rec. More specifically, Blueprint Denver is a guide for city development. I like this slide in particular because it shows the organization of infrastructure, parks, cultural items, and it shows them meshing together to come up with a city pattern. And that's the goal. More specifically, the site is currently considered a community center and innovation flex. And as the center, the citywide plans are anticipating mixed-use development and a place where people go to engage in socializing, dining, and cultural events. I did want to point out, as we get a little bit more specific on area plans, Alma Lincoln Park is an existing area plan, and that area plan calls for more planning in the Burnham Yard area. Next, I'm going to invite my colleague Brandon Shaburn, who's going to say just a few minutes, or say a few words about equity. I'll do that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Shaburn, a seasoned planner with Community Planning and Development and discipline of lanes for zoning impediment on this site. I think I really want to take some time to you guys a preview of what the city is really standing up, what we really stand up behind in our plans equity. Blueprint Denver, as Stephen mentioned, contains 3 equity concepts, and we use these to guide all of our planning and development across the city to make sure that everybody is moving along at the same speed. What we felt that was important is access to opportunity, making sure that people are able to move to their jobs, limited services across their neighborhood, across the city. Also important for us to make sure that we're reducing or delayed displacement, so current residents are able to maintain their lifestyle, and as the neighborhood grows, they change along with it. And also expanding housing and jobs diversity. This is really important for the site as we are anticipating quite a number of new housing units and a lot of jobs.
Hopefully for that.
Yeah.
Most definitely. So here you can read what the city describes as equity. we consider this everybody having the same opportunity to move forward and thrive, regardless of where they're from or who they are. And what's really important about this project is that in the small area plan, the community advisory committee is adapting this statement and making it their own and making it really special and particularly focused on Burnham Yard areas, which is great. So moving forward, equity is going to be considered at every step throughout the planning and development process. This will include a full equity analysis that applicants will describe in all of their materials. And it's really important that we have a small area that's going on at the same time, because this area plan is going to really give us binary guidance on equity and how to achieve those equitable outcomes. Thank you. So that will pass back to Stephen.
Great. So I just got one more slide. One more slide, and then we'll get to the more exciting part. So we have an initial application that was submitted, and we did that. We reviewed that, and we had some initial findings. So our initial findings include the rezoning is encouraged, and it will set up the site for mixed use and residential development, providing housing options and expanding housing affordability. The regulations are applied, and it's also a city priority. Open space opportunities to create meaningful connections, and 10% open space is part of the requirements. Mobility improvements are anticipated. And then I did want to be sure to point out, with multiple stakeholders, including CDOT, RTD, the city, heavy rail, the community, there are lots of stakeholders, and so coordination is going to be a heavy lift, and it will be an important part of it. And lastly, sustainability and building electrification and water recovery are encouraged. So thank you. I want to turn it over to Cindy Marsiglio with the Denver Broncos. And again, thank you for listening to the city portion with us.
Thanks for showing up. My job here with the Broncos is quite simple: to take the vision you have from Delani through the process you just heard from Stephen. It's a super simple process, right? Did you get all that? Did you guys get all those acronyms? You have to take it out. I really have just three things to share with you tonight. And the first is to give you an update on the feedback that we've heard so far. So we went ahead and went up onto the streams, so culmination of not only the community meetings that we had in November as occurred at the kickoff, but also the feedback that continues to come in. I bet that much of this is on your mind tonight, just about. The second bit that I would love to cover with you all is just about our design principles. What are we thinking as we know true? The design, the plan, the due diligence inside, and there is still a lot to discover. These are the 6 principles that we went in that large development review application, and we asked for feedback. You can see the top 3 were pretty pumped, right? We hear that. You'll be having a chance tonight to give us more of your suggestions, more of your ideas. What does community activity really need to get? What does safe, connected, life rail really mean to you? What does mobility mean to you? And all these visuals that we're going to teach here tonight the awards for the second part of tonight's would be. So we're going to continue to see your feedback here. So give us your ideas, ask your questions, and we'll keep that tally real tight. And the last bit is schedules. Everyone wants to know, where are we? We are very early in the process, okay? This is a lot to do. And the first part here is a very intentional illustration to me to say that this little and Philip got all the way through. And even after 3 design and construction, as you would expect that they rush to them. We will have entitlements and design and applications that got people this year, and remarks back from the city, working with the state and others, and you. That's going to take us through the duration of 2026. Much of your feedback will result in a community benefits agreement, which memorializes a lot of those responsibilities that we'll undertake. We'll get construction started and be set up for that opening day. Construction phases, with that first phase to be ready by 2031. Are you excited about that? Are you ready for that? I know I am too. Let me just end on the visual that is in section 1 in the very back, which is that site. And I just wanted to point out that Burnham Yard not only sits here, it looks like it belongs in the day not good. We're a little bit now south of 6 in the Baker neighborhood as well. That really cool garage shop that is a century old, 1924. It sits just north of that 8th Avenue viaduct, and then the turntable is just south. Those are some really exciting historical elements that we're excited to work with partners on. And the Denver Water campus there just to the west There's about 20 acres of that site. The relocation of that property is a key enabler and a key enabler to our design and construction. So I just want to kind of orient these so you're all on the same page. You can ask a lot of questions. I mean, I'd love to turn you back to our last speaker of the night, Josh Brooks. Josh Brooks is with Sasaki, our local Denver design team leader, and he's going to talk to you about the design so far. Take it away, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys hear me? All right. So the first thing I want to do is just drive on what Steven said. We are incredibly committed to working with the city. There's really three boundaries. So the small area plan is that big vision that the city is leading. There is a Durham boundary that is a little bit bigger than the site that we are working with. And then everything that we're here to talk about tonight is really within this orange boundary. We really want to listen. We really want to understand so that we can ensure that our plans match our vision. These really doesn't click very well. But all right. As Imani mentioned, this site really has been a major barrier on the whole and a donut of an incredible community. And our intention is really to ensure that this is an integrated community, a mixed-use development that really serves as an extension of the city, becomes part of the shared memory unity. And so we have a lot of material out in the meeting today, but what I want to do is just walk through some of the main basic kind of design principles that our team and Broncos really want to ensure we're here. So that first major move is that what we've done is we've really positioned the stadium at the western side of the site. That means that we have the ability to build off of the existing community, build off of the existing light rail, and ensure that the visual impact and the noise is really pushed as far away from the residential community as possible. The second big allows is again, about 5 to 7 million square feet of new development that can actually be built. Things like residential, retail, entertainment, office, civic uses, daily life amenity. I think right now we're here to listen to you. We really want to understand what those uses are. But what this means is that this site truly becomes an extension of the neighborhood. The second big boost, before I go into that, one of the things I want to stress is that with this development, our intention is to really ensure that it feels as part of the community. And so we've been very intentional to understand what is the existing building heights, what does the neighborhood fabric feel like, and how can we ensure we're respecting those sort of old historic buildings, but also the community surrounding it. So we want to preserve views. We want to ensure that this feels as though it is an extension of that existing community. And so we're not intending to build really tall buildings that are 16, 20 stories up, but rather something that is a much more livable scale and really celebrates that context. The second big move is that we want to ensure that the city grid extends into the city. And that means that we're providing safe, comfortable, and convenient access for all modes of transportation. And within that site, an interconnected network of public spaces. One of the key things, and we heard this loud and clear on the first day, is when we have an event, how do we ensure that this doesn't have negative impacts? And so we've really been very intentional to design the infrastructure to police the parking reservoirs within the district, to take advantage of the existing heavy infrastructure at 6, I-25, 13th, Osage, and Colfax to ensure that we are not pushing people into the community. And in fact, as we think about operationally, when we have large events, how do we ensure that we have restricted access so that we're not, again, forcing people to drive through the existing residential neighborhood? We also want to be very intentional that, right now it's a lot of existing pedestrian and bike infrastructure that exists around this site, but this really is a hole in that donut. And so our network of pedestrian spaces and bike systems will really tie together a lot of the existing infrastructure and allow people to move east-west through the site, north-south through the site, connect to the South Platte, connect to Cherry Creek, and ensure that this feels as though it is an extension of the city. We know very well that important to that is safety. And so what I'd like to do is really take you through our current plans along the eastern edge and how we contend with the sort of light rail line. So the first is that at 13, the current intention is to actually take the light rail up and over 13th Avenue so that cars, bikes, and pedestrians would be able to cross seamlessly underneath the light rail. The second is that at 12th and 9th, the intention is to actually have a grade separated bike and pedestrian connection. And so bikes and peds would be able to go seamlessly underneath the light rail, providing that safe and convenient connection to the community. And then lastly, the kind thinking is that at, here we go, 11, 10, and 8, very similar to the same light rail line in downtown, is to really have those be at grade, visually accessible, safe, and convenient crossings so that we are not building a big barrier between the existing neighborhood and this development. And so the intention is that for those cars and bikes and pedestrians to be able to move seamlessly through into the neighborhood, but still understanding that on large event days, we're going to have to control some of that access. The third, or the next big idea from the master plan is, we really want to ensure that this is developed into unique zones. This is 150 acres. It's a very large site. And so each of these zones within the development will have its own character. Some might be much more residential. Some might be much more mixed use. Our goal is to really position the energy around the 10th and Osage Station and along 10th Street to ensure that we're connecting to the Santa Fe Arts District and bolstering up the existing retail and food and beverage within the area. Not lastly, but one of the other big moves is we want to ensure that we are connecting that locomotive shop, that incredible 100-year-old building, to the community. We have some initial ideas, but we're very excited to talk about that tonight. And so along 10th Street and by the 10th and Osage Station, really connecting these together with an incredible pedestrian network. Lastly, I want to touch on open space. I think this is an incredibly important opportunity to take what has been, a derelict industrial site and really transform it into a sustainable future. And so our intention is to certainly meet the city's minimum, but definitely exceed and build an incredible public realm that ties together the existing Alma Link Park through the site. And even more important is really position this as part of a broader network of open space. And so we understand that there is incredible assets both close by and a little bit further away. And we really see this network tying it to that broader open space. In terms of phasing, we want to be clear. This is a big site. It's a big development. And as Cindy mentioned, our intention is to build the infrastructure, the stadiums, public rental, and then a portion of the development really on the eastern side by that 2031 deadline. So that this is really not just the stadium surrounded by parking, but rather a true neighborhood. And then in future phases, any of the surface parking that we deliver on day one will be covered up with new development. So we're incredibly excited to think about a new and innovative models that this is not just a stadium, but rather an entire community. And so just to close out, we really do see this, to drive home what Damani said, this is a world-class place for both the everyday and the big day, the fans and the community. We're incredibly excited to hear what you have to say. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emin. Yes.
All right, thank you so much to our presenters. We are going to transition into a very important part, which is your feedback on what you've just heard, what you've seen, and how we can incorporate that into next design. So while you've heard, we are very early in our engagement process and our outreach. We've been encouraged by the valuable feedback that we've already received. That has been through the form of 2 public open houses similar to this evening, which you all are engaging in tonight. That has included dozens of meetings, both formal and informal, with elected officials and their staff members, local nonprofit leaders, key stakeholders, and neighborhood associations associated with the community. So we share this to share that we've started, we're not done, and we won't be finished. So this is a process that will go and continue on with us throughout. We will continue collecting that feedback in these types of sessions. As I mentioned earlier, that will also be through some digital survey. That will be through paper surveys we have here. That will be through additional meetings that you will hear about from the Broncos. Again, listening and learning every step of the way to ensure that your vision is coming to life with the rest of this. We have agreed to and are very excited to start the collective benefits agreement process. So we're working hand in hand and part-time with residents in this neighborhood to develop that together to ensure that it's thoughtful, but it's also impactful for those that are a part of this neighborhood and a part of this community. Attendance tonight was incredible. Thank you so much for making time to be here. And we want to ensure that your partnership is with us not only tonight, but throughout the rest of this process. We are committed to being transparent and proactive in sharing that information with you. As I mentioned in my opening, goal 1 is to ensure that you have accurate information directly from the Broncos about what we know and what we don't know. So as of right now, tonight, this presentation and the boards that you see around you are already available on our website. So newstadium.denverbroncos.com. Please forward that to those in your network who are not able to meet with us tonight. But also, if you're driving home and you have that vision of, I really want to go back and revisit that slide or learn a little bit more, that's an opportunity to continue that process with us. We are excited to continue on with meetings. Already met some really incredible people tonight. Excited to come out and continue that partnership directly with you. So accurate information. And now it is time for actionable input. So this is where it gets really fun. And we want to see and hear from you directly. After we do some interactive polling, we will have breakout sessions for Q&A. This is such a large group. We want to be really respectful to everyone's questions. So we will do Q&A and breakouts. And with that, Andy Mountain, take us away.
Comments?
John.
So let's orient you real quick here. Those of you with phones that want to participate now, I see all the folks in front of that. Scan the QR code. That's going to turn your phone into a voting device. Those of you that don't have phones or don't want to scan the QR code, fear not. We've got stations over here that have these same questions as well as open-ended survey questions. Either you can fill out both in paper as well as on computers if you'd like. And then these same survey questions are sitting on the newstadium.denverbroncos.com website to call. These questions are going to stay live toward the next 15 days. 1 to 5. We've got the interesting and fun part that the Broncos get in the offseason here is I'm going to say, we'll say whatever, 300 people here tonight, probably 500, and we get to answer every single one of them. And we have to do that by 15 days from that. So that'll go back to the city as part of the process team. So my hope is that I've killed enough time, Victory, to get that voting device up. If you guys want to flip over our first question here, and this really is getting into sort of the public spaces and open spaces that Josh talked about. What is required by the city is actually the same amount that this all Lincoln buckets. This is 15 acres. The 150-acre site means at least 15 acres that we're planning on exceeding that. What we want to know is what kind of uses do you want to see in the menu? Do you want more of sort of that festival food truck piece? I see that sort of bubbling up near the top here. Do we want sort of more on the sort of informal, as you go at the bottom, informal passive areas, whether that is soccer, those sorts of things? One of the things we want to be very careful with is that we're not replicating or duplicating the same uses that you've got already in this park. So some of these uses really become a network of open spaces that we'll be able to use throughout this. So you see here, we've got sort of the flexible gathering spaces. Again, that's sort of that food truck concept, community events, and that ability to sort of activate, come to in up top. And then more on the passive side, a board, maybe just sort of a quiet days at the neighborhood, if we will, coming up second, and as we look to grow. So why don't we move to the second here? So this second question is getting into the mixed-use development that Josh talked about. So these are those 5 neighborhoods that he discussed with the entertainment district, Northern Neighborhood, Southern, et cetera. And as you begin to think about sort of what kinds of amenities and options would you want to see developed in that. So I'll walk across the options here so that you all begin to get a sense of it. They're a little bit small on the screen up here. One is that idea of sort of everyday uses. We heard a lot in November about the idea of sort of grocery, those sorts of things. So concerns about the King Soopers proximity to here and sort of some desires around that products. When you think about dry cleaners, pharmacies, those sorts of elements. You see sort of casual dining, those sorts of options. Think more grab and go, those sorts of concepts, sit down restaurants. As we begin to look more towards the right, and you begin to see sort of these are on the lower end, at least among you at this point, are those more activity-based experiences. So whether that is a polo hall, whether that's a darts, bowling alley, those sorts of things, movie theaters, as we look at those, small concert venues, that sort of element that can come in. Health and wellness, whether that be gyms, that could be salons, that could be a spa type things. And then again, we did hear a lot in November about the importance sort of daycare options in the community, ensuring that we've got that created as well as our demand standard. So what I'll just sort of flag here, obviously sort of what you're seeing is those casual dinings coming to the top with sort of the everyday uses, and then the sit-down restaurants sort of coming in shallow. Okay. When we go to our next ones. So this is going to get into concerns. And what these reflect are feedback that we heard in November already about things that the community is concerned about with this development coming in. And so what we've listed out here again is sort of this idea of parking, traffic and congestion in the neighborhoods. Josh talked about sort of designing street infrastructure to minimize some of that. Parking during major events, whether that's gigs, concerts, those sorts of things. We heard a bit on sort of noise from these events as they went through. We did hear quite a bit. We're not getting much on it tonight here, but we did hear a lot about sort of that post-event, disgruntled fans behavior that break habit. Number that's up here, your top one, and this is why I want to make sure you know how seriously we're going to take this. Sort of that impacts on housing expenses, particularly as it relates to property services, right? I've gotten a lot of questions in the back tonight about this idea of is this development going to increase property values and property taxes if I own my house outright and I'm on a fixed income, and sort of those sorts of solutions. The design of the plan probably doesn't get into solutions for that sort of concept, but those are the types of things that community metrics agreement living to get to deal with ever. I think one of the other ones I want to flag, it's only showing up here as 19, but I do want to sort of shine a spotlight on it, is that community identity, the culture of this neighborhood. This is such a rich and diverse neighborhood, and ensuring that we are a part of that community is something we have on it throughout. So our last one that we'll close on, and then we'll head to the Q&A session here, is your single biggest opportunity, your hope. So when you think about this development around the stadium that's going to go in and the stadium itself, the options here that we've got is sort of that improved game day experience, sort of a world-class stadium that will attract events. That connection of sort of neighborhoods east and west of the rail yard, rather than having to sort of go up to 13th and mark your way around. Looking at civic venues that are coming in, affordable housing options is something we've heard quite a bit about. That neighborhood culture and history piece, local jobs. And I think the jobs piece, and this is one that we were sort of very intentional about breaking. Yes, jobs are a key structure, but is the idea of long-term jobs where you can live in the neighborhood and go to work right in the neighborhood. And you see we've got those two separated. And then the last piece is sort of improved transit amenities as well as service with that 10th of the stage one. So just to sort of, again, reflect back what we're seeing from you here. That connectivity piece, obviously, the centuries-old rail yard that divided east and west on this, sort of rising to the top. Transit and sort of that stadium experience are right in the top rate. So if I could get you to quiet down in the back, your voices are actually carried just a bit here. Let me orient you to how we're going to continue into the Q&A sessions, as well as the additional comment opportunities that we got. So first and foremost, those of you that did not participate in the polling, I want you at some point before you leave to make your way over to this table. We've got hard copy printed surveys. We also have computers where you can take it on the computer there. And we've also got the QR codes if you want to use your phone there. Secondarily, if you have sort of additional input that you wanted to share, the comment forums are both online as well as hard copy would be the place for that. For those that are looking to sort of dialogue a bit more with the Broncos team, the planning team, we're going to break it into 4 separate topical Q&A areas, and I'll orient you to where those are going to be right now. So those of you that have questions and want to talk about mobility, parking, those sorts of issues, that's going to be over here under, we'll call this basketball hoop 1.
This is great.
As you begin to think about sort of it says built for, and that's like fancy planner speak for what does it look like to get this, right? How does this neighborhood feel and fit? That's going to be under basketball hoop 2. Basketball hoop 3, general, open-ended. So you'll have Josh and I back there, be able to take questions that sort of work through. I don't feel like it fits any of these other topics. And then the third area is, again, on that open space piece. Again, what do you want to see in there? How would that look? Those sorts of elements. So we will be here for a while longer here, answer the questions you've got. I'm going to tell the team right now, when you're done waiting and stuff, and I know we said 7 o'clock. There's no way I'm making you leave at 15 minutes. So I appreciate you coming. Again, let me new stadium.denverbroncos.com. Everything is going to be there, and then we'll get to those Q&A stations right now. Thanks again.